Well, looks like we can get started here. Again, I appreciate everyone's patience. I'm Tim Lochran. I'm the Director of Land Acquisition here at Robertson Homes. Thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate everybody jumping on. We'll probably have a large crowd. We notified about 650 of our neighbors. So if you received the notice, you're within 1,000 feet of the proposed site. I know MLife put it on as well, and it was on the city website. So I'm expecting to basically admit people the entire time I'm talking here. So if I'm distracted, that's what it is. But again, thank you for showing up tonight. I want to just kind of briefly go through our proposal, and the whole point of tonight is to get your comments, get your feedback, help us understand the site a little bit better. Generally speaking, Robertson Homes, and by the way, we're a company, we've been around almost 80 years. So, we've been in Southeast Michigan the entire time. I've not been with a company that entire time. But we've done a lot of work over the past 80 years. Some of it in Ann Arbor. In fact, some of it even recognize me through our more recent approvals at the Village of Ann Arbor, which is on the north side of the city. And then you may also be familiar with Robertson Homes. We're building just south of this site, about a mile down Ann Arbor Swain Road in Pittsfield. It's our Towns on the Green development. So we're just getting started there. So you may be familiar with us from that respect, but welcome. Thank you for your time tonight. This is a citizen participation meeting. We have not submitted anything to the city. We've only had some discussions with them, but this is really the first step. It's very conceptual. Everything I'm going to show you, really, we have not gone to any formality of submitting to the city at all. What I'd like to do, just from a game plan, just discuss why we're here. It is a requirement.
Left or right?
The city of Ann Arbor. The site actually technically is in Pittsfield Township right now. Our plan would be to annex it in, which is actually called for in the master plan for the city of Ann Arbor. It's a requirement, but regardless, our MO, Robertson's MO, is to meet with neighbors on the front end, regardless if it's a requirement of the city or not. So this is just who we are. This is how we do it, and hopefully it's beneficial for everybody involved. What I hope to accomplish tonight is we have a conversation. I'll go through a couple of the slides. If you can bear with me with that, just to introduce the project. That'll probably take me about 15 minutes. And then I'd love to open it up for any questions you guys may have. But if you could just kind of keep that to the end of the presentation, really appreciate it. There's a little hand, gesture somewhere on here. We'll go with whoever raises their hand first at the end of the presentation. So hopefully that's good for everybody. And I'll get started. I'll share my screen now. And is everybody seeing the presentation slide? Just before we move on. Let's see a couple head nods. That's great. Okay. I don't even have a project name at this point. That is how early on. So this is very conceptual. We have the property under contract. We don't own the property. There are a couple of different owners of the parcels. So it is an assemblage of land. And it's essentially basically the southwest corner of Scio Church and Ann Arbor Swain Road. So the site plan, I assume everybody wants to see that. It's probably really small on the card that I sent you guys, so I apologize for that. But our proposal is to construct 75 townhomes on the property. It's about just around 6 acres. So that's about 12 or so dwelling units per acre, which is typical of townhomes. We're proposing a similar type of development for the Village of Ann Arbor. So if you're familiar with that site, specifically, the for sale component is similar to what we're proposing here. Not exactly. These might be a little bit larger, but again, it's very conceptual. But they would be for sale townhomes in that respect. Similar to the ones that we're building in Pittsfield to the south of here. Those are also for sale townhome units. That's residential, single family, attached single family. This isn't like a stacked type of apartment building where people are living on top of each other. What this is each individual home is really just connected, but they have 3 floors basically to themselves, where you have the first floor is where you come in with your garage. The other side of the home is where your guests would come, and there's a vestibule there as you walk in. Second floor is very open. It's got dining, kitchen, great room, lots of windows. It feels very open. And then the third floor is where the bedrooms are, either a 2 or 3 bedroom for these units. And again, they would be all kind of the similar thing with all of the townhomes. They'd be a similar type of floor plan with each other. So just walking through this again, about 12 units per acre. We'll meet, all the minimum requirements that the city of Ann Arbor has. Again, our proposal is to annex into the city. Right now, it is in Pittsfield Township. It's what they consider township islands. So we had the same thing when we were going through the approvals for Village of Ann Arbor. This is what's called the Pittsfield Township island, if you will. And there are some, and I'm going to get into this in a little bit here, but there are some real specific things in the City of Ann Arbor's master plan to deal with some of these islands as they, start developing and getting connected to the city water and sewer system. So there is kind of a vision for this in the master plan. It's kind of old language, to be honest, but that is what we have to go by with what the city's vision is for the property. And then open space. Open space is very important to us. I know it's important to the city. I know they have minimums. This is almost half of the site is open space, about 45%, which, you're going to see a lot of greenery with a project like this. Just to kind of explain that area on the bottom here, where it looks like it's kind of a weird green and blue, that's the stormwater pond. We're required by the county and the city to detain all the storm water on the site. So right now when it rains, all the water just kind of goes anywhere, right? It probably flows all over the place. We won't be doing that if we are to develop the site. We would capture all the rainwater as it comes down, and then that would all get funneled into the stormwater pond, and it's a detention pond, so it'll sit there and slowly get released into the Ann Arbor Road, Ann Arbor Saline Road storm system. So it'll be a better situation just because right now there's nothing capturing that water, it's just going everywhere. So I think that's certainly a plus of development. The county has a pretty strict requirement for the size of that and how much volume it has to take. But that's to protect neighbors like you. So I think that's important. And I didn't mention, each of the units will have 2 parking spaces within each unit in the garage. So very similar to a single family home. It's almost identical, other than they're attached to each other. So just to reference that as well. We would have one main point of access on Scio Church Road. This access here, what we're proposing would be an emergency vehicle access. Emergency vehicle access is just for fire. These 2 roads are too close together. The city wouldn't really allow that. So we would have one main entrance here. But the fire department does want a second point of access to service these units. So that's why that's there. And again, this is very conceptual. We've had brief conversations with the city fire, those departments. We have not submitted anything. So this may change as we kind of proceed through the process. But you can see how it's laid out with a single entrance here. We're not proposing to connect to Autobahn. There's a couple reasons for that. I've heard from a couple of you, to be honest, and I know you don't want that connection. But to be honest, there's really not a possibility to connect here because of the grade. Anybody that's familiar with that area right there, there's quite a bit of grade as it drops down to the west. We are not proposing to connect here. So that's something that we'll have to obviously work out with the city. I believe this is a private road anyway. That is not our intent to connect. So I'm going to move on from this for now, but I'll go back to it when if I get any specific questions from all of you as we go forward. Just from a site context, this kind of shows where we're at in the greater scheme of things. As you can see, obviously South Church and then Ann Arbor Sling Road. I think everybody's very well familiar with both the location of the site. Obviously, you've got some retail down here, the retail center, and the future Valhalla project is in this location here, just for reference. I wanted to just briefly touch on this. I had talked about it a little bit as I started. The zoning right now, it's actually zoned in the township. I think it's R1A, I believe it is their zoning category. But the real intent has always been for this site to be annexed in to the city of Ann Arbor. It's an island. It's about the only piece here that you can see that isn't an island in this area. A lot of these pieces have been moved to the city, annexed into the city as they've developed over time. So this is just kind of a remnant piece. There are 4 pieces. One piece here, and then these 3 pieces are owned by another seller. So the zoning, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it's in the township. It'll be annexed in, and really what we need to discuss is what the master plan would call for in this area. And the master plan really calls out future areas, and they identified all of these township islands and what the vision is for that. And again, this was a long time ago. Things have probably changed quite a bit, but the city's really held firm to, I think, a lot of what these islands say in the master plan. So all of this area, I don't know if you see my cursor, all of this area was part of this Site 1 in the South Planning Area District. And it's about 20 acres. We're only dealing with 6 acres here. So all of this has kind of developed over time. And they've really kind of held firm with what this is saying. So essentially what this, if you read the text here, I'll just kind of paraphrase it. Everything west and south of the office, obviously there's office, land use right at the corner. Everything west and south of it has always been envisioned for single family attached. And single family attached really means, duplexes, townhomes, that style of development, not apartments, not, 6-story, stacked type of apartments or anything like that. What that's trying to get to is kind of like a missing middle, they call it, attached single family unit, which really are townhomes. So that's what we're proposing to build. And again, and I'll show you kind of the context of it, but this is really a transition use. So it's a transition from more intense office space. And then as you get through, there's some duplexes to our west, and then of course single families. You get to the further west from there. R4B is more of an intense zoning district as well. That's to the south of us. So we really see the site as an ideal transition piece from the office to the east, and then residential to our west and to our south. And that's exactly what the master plan was intending this entire time. So the only thing that really is relevant, I think, is what I highlighted here. Everything else kind of talks about specific areas that are not on the property that we're discussing. So just a summary real quick, and I showed you a little bit of this, but it's about 6 acres, and again, just over 12 units per acre. The zoning, as I mentioned, I was right, R1A. City of Ann Arbor, R4E is what we're proposing. So the City of Ann Arbor has a number of different zoning categories that would fit the townhome style of development. We're proposing R4E. So that would allow the type and density that we're showing. We do have to rezone the property, but that's after we annex the property. So it's a multiple step process. We will be submitting in the next few weeks for site plan annexation and rezoning. And that would essentially start the trigger, if you will, to get to Pittsfield, to be de-annexed from Pittsfield and annexed into the city of Ann Arbor. Again, it's what we did for the Village of Ann Arbor project to the north of here. It's a long process. The state, it's not necessarily the township that's going to be slow or the city that's going to be slow necessarily, but the state is very slow for that process. So that adds some complexity to it, but it's all part of the same process. So we'll submit for that. Eventually, we'll get to a planning commission meeting. Some of you may have been to a planning commission meeting before, but that process is, there'll be a public hearing. You as neighbors will be able to speak at that time and give input. It goes to the planning commission, and they don't vote yes or no necessarily. They vote to recommend to the city council. The city council will have the ultimate say after the planning commission. They'll take in consideration everything that's said at the planning commission meeting from the commissioners, from me, from you, and then the city council will ultimately be the ultimate arbiter of the rezoning and site plan and annexation of the site. So it's a long process. I'd love to say I could do this in 6 months. There's it takes some time to get through the process. It's just how development works. But just moving on with the summary, I kind of talked about some of this already. I want to stress they are for sale townhomes. We're not proposing rentals. And they will all have an attached 2-car garage. There are approximately 1,600 square feet. And again, about half the site is or will be open space. Some of the highlights, there is a need for housing. Everybody, I think all of you understand that there's a need for housing in Ann Arbor, and it is expensive to build new housing, but there's the demand, and we're trying to fill that demand. And we think that the proposed use is really a perfect transition for this particular site. So there'll be high quality residential townhomes, and we see this as a productive use of land in a city that's really just sitting there. It's not on the tax rolls. It's actually on Pittsfield Township's tax rolls right now. But this will make it a productive use of land. It'll be walkable and inviting. We're going to have walkways all throughout, connecting, up to Scio Church and through. It's a housing option for residents that are underserved. There are townhomes for sale in the market. They go very quickly. It is an underserved market, I can tell you that. And then I've stressed this already, but it really is a transitional use between the commercial and the residential. We think it fits very well in that respect. So just this is conceptual. So I don't want you to think that this is exactly what we're proposing. What you see on the top there, that's actually what we built at the old Tiger Stadium. If you're familiar with the Corktown area, we had built these, this was probably about 7 years ago, these types of units, what was the outfield of the old Tiger Stadium. And turned out very well. They're very nice to look at. You can go see them. You can look them on Google Earth, and but this is that style. We could build something similar to that from an aesthetic standpoint, or during the process, it may make more sense to do something maybe less modern. I don't know. I mean, that'll be an iterative process, but this is just for example right now. We can really skin them any way that makes sense for the site. And then from floor plan, I don't know if you can see this very well, but this is what I was talking about before. The owners will enter into the garage, but your guests really come in through the porch, front porch on the other side of the building. There's a bonus room down on the first floor. We call that the Zoom room. People love that. It gives them space that you don't typically get in a townhome. And then the second floor, it's very open. It's a nice kitchen. It's well appointed, and really you've got everything open in that area on the second floor. And then the third floor, we'll have 2-bedroom options, and we'll have 3-bedroom options. And since they're for sale, the homeowners will be able to choose if they want 2 or 3 bedrooms. They'll be able to choose what kind of countertops they want, what kind of kitchen, flooring, cabinets, you name it. We have a design gallery here, and they come and they select that. So they'll be putting money in to really kind of personalize that as they go. So that's something that's been very successful. So that's really it. I wanted to be brief. I can certainly go into detail on any of these items that you guys want me to. I've heard from a couple of you already, answered a couple of questions, but if you're not able to answer, or you don't feel like asking right now, I want you to know that you can always reach out to me. I've got my cell phone number here. I've got my email address. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. And I see some hand raised. I'll get to you guys in a second. Yeah, well, I'm always available to answer any questions. So we will start right now. I'm going to start with Michael Barr.
Yes, thank you. You mentioned for sale, and you don't probably have a price point yet, but you said possibly nicer than your project on Pittsfield, the other project off of Waters Road. Um, when you say that, because those price points are where 450 to 550, I guess, right now. Is that what you're selling those for?
Yeah, I mean, they start in the low 400s, but again, by the time you put things in them, yeah, people are on the 450s. That is really, you know, the new home market, we'd love to get cheaper, but that is probably where
Sure.
we'd be here.
So somewhere at least 450, if not higher.
I would say that's probably accurate. We haven't priced them, obviously. It's going to take a while to get to that point, but I would say that's
Yep.
probably accurate.
And then just knowing, because I live in the Lansdowne neighborhood and know a lot of the residents there, and I grew up in that neighborhood, but now live back there. There is a number of residents that still live in their homes that have been there for 40, 50 years. Want to stay in the area, but obviously, aging in place is important, and they typically live in two-story homes. Is there any thought whatsoever? Obviously, it impacts your density and the financials on the project, but for doing anything that's a single level or something that would serve that market over there, since it would keep them right in the area.
I would love to. I'd absolutely love to. And we're looking at a site right now in Ann Arbor that we would do that exact thing. We build ranch condominiums. About half of what we build, or maybe a third of what we build, are ranch condominiums. The challenge is just you need more land to make that happen. They just take up too much space because everything's on
Space.
the first
Yep.
floor. So we're not proposing that. I hear you. I'd love to be able to do something like that. There are ways to stack it to allow first floor units, but that's not something that you typically see in the marketplace unless you're
Especially
talking about
city.
apartments. So
Yep.
I hear you. It's just not something we're able to do here.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan?
Yeah, thank you. So I live in the Meadows condominium.
Okay.
We are very, very aware of the Valhalla project and are opposed to the density there. I have several questions for you that I think they have brief answers. One is the Valhalla project brings a lot of traffic problems to the area, particularly because of the awkward entrance and exit and right turn only and so forth.
Yes.
Do you envision doing any kind of traffic study as part of your proposal to the city?
Yes, we have to do a traffic analysis, which I have done. I've had Fleece and Vandenbrink, who they're traffic experts, traffic consultants. Their initial look at it was that it didn't meet the threshold to go toward the next level as far as a full traffic study. That being said, it's going to be a discussion we'll have with the city. They may require that, but we will be considerably less than Valhalla. I can obviously say that. But yeah.
Right, but Valhalla is going to put 1,000 cars in.
No doubt. I understand.
So I think we will encourage people to have a study. Valhalla also, to gain the zoning they wanted, offered solar power production. Do you envision doing that?
So I think we're too early to have a conversation. I'm well aware of the Ann Arbor's desires in that respect. For all electric, for solar. So nothing's off the table. I think we're just kind of early on to commit to anything for that, but we know it's important. We know those things are important, and it's something that we're certainly going to look really hard at and work with.
And
not
the
only you
last
guys.
question is,
Yeah.
R4E is the same zoning that Valhalla has, which allows them to go much higher. You said you're requesting R4E. Why not R3, which is intended for townhouses?
So that you're very astute. That's a very great question. We kind of struggle back and forth with where we would fit in there. Ann Arbor's zoning district their districts are kind of tricky because they require upwards of like 70-80% to get to fit into some of those. That does not work with townhomes. Townhomes, that works with maybe a needle tower or something like that, or an 8-story building where you have kind of a more limited footprint. Townhomes are just, there's more space for homeowners. The R4E, you're right, it does allow a lot of density. We're early on in this process, but at the same time, we recognize that. I feel that we would want to limit that on the front end to our plan, which we can do. We could ask for a conditional rezoning. Our intent is to build this site, not to get it rezoned and then come in with a needle tower. That's by all means, that's not our intent. So I think there's things we can do to alleviate your concerns on that, because that's a really good point, and it's something that we've already kind of thought through as well.
Well, our fear, and I'll stop in a second, is that if you will get it zoned R4E, and then you will sell it to someone to build a higher density product. And so I think, at least my personal view will be that we will encourage the city to stay within the R3 zoning.
Okay, I understand. And again, it really comes down to being able to fit in that, and we'll have discussions with the city as well. And I appreciate your concerns. I think we can do it with a conditional rezone that would hope to alleviate your concern, because I get the concern completely. So we can continue that conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Adam?
Hi, my name is
Here, I'll
Adam.
go take shit to my mom right now.
I'm sorry?
Sorry, somebody else was not muted. So my name is Adam Juskevich. I live in the Dickin neighborhood, which is pretty close by to here. I think this looks really good. And I think the density at R4E is appropriate for here. One question I had, and I think there's a similar question in the chat, is with the stormwater pond that stretches over to Ann Arbor Saline Road.
Yeah.
I noticed that you made a point that you want to create a walkable and inviting community. There's a grocery store, kind of a strip area over there across Ann Arbor Saline and Main there on the corner. I think it would be really great if you could include some kind of a pedestrian connection to Ann Arbor Saline, to the crosswalk there. I think that would be a great amenity for the site and for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great feedback. Obviously right now, and you can see the plan, it's tight because of the pond, and we haven't sized the pond yet. So hopefully it's a little bigger than it needs to be, and we can put a walkway in there. Because I agree, we want a screen to the south. I think that's important, but at the same time, I don't know if we necessarily need to screen, the pond. So, maybe those trees get removed so we can put a walkway in. I think that'd be a great amenity. So I wrote it down.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of seems to me, you've got that little finger sticking out there, and it just makes sense.
Yeah.
Why
it's
wouldn't
cut off
you?
Otherwise,
You know?
Yeah, it's cut off otherwise. Okay, that's good feedback. Thank you. Hi, Rich. How you doing? Oh, you're on mute.
Hi, Tim. Yeah, I think you already covered this. I just want to get a clarification. You confirmed that for solar things were up in the air. I assume right now no formal plans have been made regarding electrification of the heat and the water at this point. Is that right?
No formal decision. I mean, you know us. We obviously have met with you guys many times, and we know it's important. In fact, we're doing some of the Village of Ann Arbor's all electrics. I think many of you know. We're just kind of early on in that stage, so we'll continue to have conversations with you guys. So we know it's important for sure.
Just wanted to confirm. Okay, thanks.
Yep. Dan, did you have anything else?
No, I'm sorry. I can ask about, I don't know if you'll have the ability to limit football parking in there. This is now a big football parking area, and residents may not appreciate having their parking all filled up.
Yeah. Oh, and thank you. So this will be a homeowners association, and they'll make sure that there's not football parking. And great point. But yeah, there really wouldn't be an area to do that. There are open spaces, obviously. But no, that'll be flushed out, I'm sure, with the HOA.
Okay, so it's a condominium structure.
It is a condominium. Yes, there'll be an
Okay, thank
HOA, homeowners association for sure.
Okay, thanks. I'll take my hand down.
All right, perfect. Any other
Yeah.
hands? I'll get to the chats. Anybody
Sure.
else?
Yeah, Tim, can I ask about the height
Yep.
of the units, and also can you speak to a little bit about how you plan to deal with lighting, issues seeping into the neighboring streets and all of that?
Yeah, no, great questions. So we're proposing 3 stories, and that's typically about 35 feet in height from the top to the usually the midpoint is what they call it. We are proposing flat roofs here. So I think to the parapet, I think it's 35 feet. So that's from basically here to here. As far as lighting, so the city will require us to do a full, photometric study. So we don't go past the allowable light spillage onto the neighboring properties. Generally speaking, we don't like to put much exterior lighting in. We don't typically put, unless we're forced by the community, we don't put in street lights necessarily, maybe at the entrance. What we do is we have lighting on, we have sconces on the front and typically the back of the units. And that's about it for lighting. We might have some landscape lighting and that sort of thing, but we're not proposing to put a bunch of street lights in here. That's just not something we typically do, especially when we don't have like collector roads like we do at the Village of Ann Arbor.
Thank you.
Hi, Tim, this is Julie Fritz. I just have a real quick question. You said at the beginning that you guys don't own the parcels of land?
Correct. Yeah, the typical process is we get property under contract. And usually there's enough time so we can then go and get approvals. That's kind of the typical process for real estate. So we wouldn't own it unless we get approvals. And again, that could take quite a bit of time. So no, we do not own them outright. We have them under contract.
And you said there's three owners now?
There are 2 owners. There's one owner has 3 parcels and the other owner has 1 parcel.
Okay, and so where the retention pond is a house now?
Yeah,
And so that'd be tore down and,
they're removed, yes.
yeah, if you could, yeah, so the person that owns that, where the stormwater pond is, owns other sections of the,
Right, they own this parcel and then these 2
These-
parcels. Yep,
okay. Okay, thank you.
yep.
Don't touch it yet.
Okay, who else?
Can you see me? What the hell?
Yeah, Andrea Carroll, I see.
Hang on.
Now you should.
Tim, can you hear me?
Yep, yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, well, I'm not Andrea. I'm Tim. Andrea is here with me.
Yep.
We happen to have a condominium right on the proposed property line here,
Here,
and on Audubon Drive up toward Scio Church, second building down.
okay, yep.
Here's my question. What kind of barrier would you consider? What do you propose between the Audubon properties and your property, running north to south? And I'll tell you what I have in mind is a berm, heavy foliage, a fence. What are your thoughts?
So we're not proposing a fence at this time. That's not to say that we wouldn't. I mean, that's the whole purpose of these meetings, to have those conversations with you guys. We're proposing a pretty dense screening. These are evergreens. That's what we're proposing. But again, this is a first pass at it. So the only thing I'd say to it, Tim, is that we need to understand the grading there. Obviously you're pretty close to the property line. And I think that's flat, but then I think it goes up there. I don't think it's as pronounced maybe up here as maybe down here. But we'd have to deal with grade at some point. So the fence makes sense. I just don't know how we can fit it in there. Or there's always a way. There's always a way to engineer it. So our proposal right now is to do evergreens. But listen, you and I have already talked, so I know that you know, we'll remain talking on this, and we'll do what's right.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks, Tim.
Sure, of course. Other comments? I'll get to the chat unless somebody has a brave enough to speak. Okay, so here
I'm
we
sorry.
go.
I have
Oh,
a
yeah.
question.
Sure.
Yeah, so you mentioned the flooding, and we do appreciate, the concern about the flooding onto other property. We also are on Audubon Drive. I just wonder if you can speak to, we have flooding issues already in the area, and it's been an issue, I believe, that's been under remedy for years. But how will this development, if it adversely affects the flooding even greater in our area, what do you propose the development is going to do to remedy that?
It's rare that I come to a piece of property and there's not already flooding issues. So, I mean, it's kind of standard for us. We do a lot of, infill type of development, and that's something I hear a lot, Laura. So, as I kind of mentioned, right now, there's nothing to take that water. It just flows any which way. So that can't happen. We're not allowed by law to convey any stormwater onto our neighboring property. So we will have drains on all of the property lines throughout that would basically have catch basins. Those catch basins would catch the stormwater before it exits our site, and then it would be piped in. Everything would pipe into the stormwater pond. So rather than it going off to the sides onto your property, it'll come into that system. It'll make its way in the pond and then slowly be released at an agricultural rate into the system that's already there. So, I hate making, saying, hey, trust me, it's going to be perfect for you. But I can guarantee you it's going to be a better situation than it is now, because nothing's being captured right now, and we will capture everything that comes down. So hopefully that alleviates your concern on that. Thank you. Okay, so I'll hit some of these comments here. So I think I answered that first one. Robertson does not own these properties as of yet. Will there be connection to Lambeth Drive? Which one is Lambeth Drive? Will the stormwater pond be adjacent to Lambeth Drive? I should know this, but is that over
I
here?
think
I can
Lambeth
answer.
connects
Yeah.
down into the Lansdowne subdivision further to the south.
Down
And
here?
yeah,
we don't
southwest of,
Yep.
like off the southwest corner.
Sure, we don't touch that. I could put up Google Earth, but yeah, you can see our property line just stops here, so there's no way to connect.
Maybe there's a site plan context slide somewhere.
Yeah, good point. Is that this?
Yep, right there.
Yep. No, we would not be connecting. I know that's another parcel of land there, but no, we're not connected to that. Thank you for explaining where that was. Oh. Sidewalk connection. Wow. I think we're getting multiple comments on the same thing, which is great. Yeah, the sidewalk connection makes sense. I'll kind of put this up again. I think we just need to figure out what our stormwater pond requirements are going to be, and then maybe we don't have that screening here, but I can just, by eyeballing this, realize that was a miss on our part. And again, that's the whole reason for these conversations. So I will mark that down. Head connection to east. What's the thinking of not having automobile access to Ann Arbor Saline Road? That's a good question. Really, it just, we did a number of site plan designs on this. I would have loved to have been able to pick up this church property. That was not a possibility for us. So that really creates a very narrow parcel, which is actually at the low end of the site. We talked about putting a road here and putting some units on there. It just really doesn't fit. It's not efficient. It makes sense to utilize that area for the storm pond, again, because of the grade, but also just because of the configuration of it. So it was a little awkward having that connection. I don't know if it's necessary, if it's necessary, but I do hear everybody on the pedestrian. So that was it. We just really couldn't fit it in there. Wow, I think that's it. Any other questions? I was thinking I'd have 650 people on the Zoom, so that's what happens when you send that many out. Okay. Well, again, I appreciate everyone's time. I know everybody's busy. We try to make it convenient, but I know it's not convenient for everybody. So again, thank you for your time. If you have neighbors that want some information, they can contact me. If you want to give them my contact information, I'll put it up here again. Oh, wait a second. It didn't work.
Tim, can I get one more question in?
Yeah, of course you can.
This is James Thompson. We're neighbors next door on Audubon in Country Place. And there's currently, due to that being a large, open, natural space, we have a lot of wildlife that is in that area. You wouldn't quite believe it. We see foxes, we see deer. We have a more or less resident flock of turkey there. And I'm just wondering if there's any consideration for that. I don't know what it would be. I don't know how you mitigate it for it, but you probably just ought to know that that's there, and it's going to be a great loss to our community if those animals are cut off and can't occupy the normal territory that they use, especially the turkeys. The turkeys actually roost in our backyard, in the trees in our backyard, and they also forage in the open space now. I don't know if you were aware of that or not.
I'm not. We did have our environmental consultant go out there and do a natural features study. I know they didn't mention any of that, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. I completely believe you. Do they come like from east to west? Is that where they come?
They're typically grazing, foraging in the main body of the lot that you're purchasing, where your main development is, and around in that area. I don't know, the other older residents would know more about where they come from. We suspect they might even cross the street from the Pioneer property over there, but we don't know that for sure. But we do know for sure that they use that area extensively, and they're there every day. It's not occasional. It's where they more or less live. Yeah. And you might not see that if you just came in and looked around for a little bit. You'd have to be there for a while. Yeah,
that makes sense. Okay, I mean, certainly something we want to be considerate of.
I just wanted to add on. I'm glad that you brought that up. Actually, we saw the turkeys today before the Zoom, and they do cross through our property and go to Mara, and they roost over on the house that's on Scio Church. That's part of the Mara Drive property next door. That's their route. They go back and forth through all the properties.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I can't obviously promise what we can or cannot do. Certainly something that I'm glad I know about, and we'll take a look at, and I'll talk to our ASTI as our environmental consultant. I mean, they deal with this sort of thing. So we'll have those conversations. I don't know exactly what we can do for it, but it's something that obviously is important to you guys, so it's important to us. We'll certainly review it.
Linda has a question.
This is Linda, and I would just add to that one of the things that you could think about is decreasing the number of units there and leaving more open space towards the back, where they use some of that to transfer through that piece of property over to the property on Mara and back and forth. This whole section that's right down there at the very end of of that, those long lots.
Okay.
Which is 2, 4, I don't know, looks like it might be 12 units.
Okay. You talking
Cut your
about-
number down a little bit and leave some more green space back here in front of the stormwater pond.
Okay. Well, again, this is a concept. It's going to go through the process, and that'll, that'll be weighed in, I'm sure, in the planning commission, the city council as well. So we'll take a look at it and see if there's ways we can try to accommodate it. I'm not sure I saw any more chats. Okay, well, I'm gonna put my contact information up here again. If you want a copy of this slide deck and then the citizen participation plan itself, I've got to turn in a report on this meeting. I'm happy to include you in it. If you just want to shoot me an email or a text or something like that. Just to kind of reiterate, the process is multiple steps. It's applying for a site plan, and the city is going to take some time to review that. In the meantime, it's got to go to Pittsfield Township. It's got to go to their board of trustees to vote to de-annex it. It's somewhat of a formality, I'll be honest, just because of the master plan and the agreements that the two municipalities have. But that does take a little bit of time. Next step then would go to the planning commission in City of Ann Arbor, and then the city council, where they'd vote either way on the rezone and the annexation. So that whole process, I'll be honest, I wish it was less than a year, but it's probably up to a year. So that's just how that all goes. So in the meantime, feel free to reach out to me and continue some of these conversations that we had tonight. So unless there's anybody else that has anything else. Okay, well, good. I appreciate everyone's time, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you,
thank
Tim.
you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Thanks. Oh, yeah, my information's here. I just saw that comment. It's at the bottom here. Hopefully you can see that. Am I not sharing?
You're sharing. You're sharing.
Okay, good. Yep. I'll leave it up. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.